we're focused on where will it have real impact in the long term. It doesn't mean we're not doing things today, but we're approaching them in kind of a modular way so that knowing change will happen. We're not betting on something that we can predict. We're making changes that can happen today.
You're listening to the Building Better Futures podcast, where innovation meets inspiration. In each episode, host Eric Hurani journeys alongside notable thought leaders who are shaping the future, cultivating exceptional work cultures, and nurturing the next generation of trailblazers. We aim to spark inspiration by engaging in dialogue with leaders from groundbreaking companies, innovative projects, and exceptional teams. Our goal is to empower individuals to positively impact those around them and leave a lasting legacy of positive change in our communities and society at large. Let's dive in together and explore what it takes to build better futures, one conversation at a time.
Today, I'm joined by Ed Broderick, CEO of Gilbane, the holding company with a number of operating entities. Hey, Ed, how are you?
I'm great, Eric. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, no, are you kidding? I'm so excited. And, I know one of the things that's uniquely interesting to you but the firm as a whole is just you're a fifth generation family member, right? And
I am. Yeah.
I am in awe of companies that can last that long. And I'm in a number of CEO networking groups. And at an event maybe a year or two ago, they actually did a question. And it was like, how many of you were first generation owners? How many of you were second generation, third generation? I think by fourth generation, we were capped out. And that was only like two people in a room of a number of CEOs. And so it's just, I'm really excited to hear more about that as we dive into this episode.
It's a unique characteristic and something that we enjoy. And by the way, I've enjoyed a number of your podcasts. I want you to say you've got some great guests and some cool things for us all to listen to and to learn. And you're doing a great job networking and helping us all advance in our built environment world.
I really appreciate that, and I can only say I get probably so much more out of this than anybody else. I learned so much and so many great people, and one of the most important lesson, and this was something that was stressed to me as a kid, and we're kind of going out of order here, but it's fine. Was like my dad would always tell me, he's like, just pick up the phone and ask. Like, people want to help you. People want to answer your questions. And I think a lot of early career professionals, and even later in your career, it's still like, it's a hard bias to get over, to say, hey, I can just pick up the phone and call someone so important. And this is a way to kind of like, just, I don't know, make people seem like accessible and like ask questions. And this industry is all about helping and giving back to the next generation, right? And giving it forward. And so I appreciate you sharing that. And we've had a number of great guests, and I thank them all for their time, because they're all so important and busy and like amazing people. And it's just been so much fun. So thank you for that.
Yeah, that's great.
I'll start the episode like we start most of our episodes, with a section on good news and gratitude. Is there any personal or professional like good news or gratitude you'd want to share with me in the audience?
Well, there's great alignment between you and your work and Gilbane. And we start our meetings with what we call a Gilbane Cares moment. And so what we like to do is start by reflecting on something that could have to do with our business. It could have to do with personal, very similar to what you do. It's like an open-ended, what would we like to bring people's attention to at this point? And, so my thought right now when you ask that question is just the blessings that we have at Gilbane for the work that we do in our community. And as we talk today, you're going to learn a lot about the different types of facilities that we work on. And one of our big businesses is providing affordable housing in major cities in the United States and all of the amenities that come with that. And it really deepens our connectivity into communities. It allows us to understand just the basic needs and provide those for communities and for individual people. And so it's a great area that I'm very proud of. And as you know, I ran the real estate company before the holding company, and one of the big businesses there. So something I'd love to share now.
I love that. And I thank you for sharing that you guys do that at such a big company level, because it goes to show the importance of it, right? No matter how big you get, you can never forget about the communities we build in, or the importance of the people that we work with, right? It sounded like you had two components there. One was about the community, but one was also about your people. And that's great to hear. So did you want to say something to elaborate?
Yeah, I was just gonna, you're right. It's about people. It's about community. It's about, like what you've done. It's just taking a quick moment to reflect. And there could be a moment or something that's happening in the world. I'm sure this happens to you where you want to say something about that. But it's just very, very important to our core values as to who we are, that we recognize that, and then, on deep into the work that we have at hand.
I love it. I will share a gratitude similar to what you just shared. So I was at an event a couple of nights ago. And my gratitude will be to my business coach, Kevin Donnelly. He invited me to the event, and he's been an amazing, just friend and partner. But at the event, the speaker was Dave Metzler, he's amazing. If you haven't heard him, highly recommend. He's lived like two lives. He's lived like this rock star life, and then he's lived this like altruistic life. And it's amazing to hear, get it all, lose it all, get it all back in a completely different way. But he was stressing the importance of sharing a gratitude every morning and every evening, and how it comes back to you like tenfold, really. So that's my gratitude for today. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Let's dive into you as a person. Before we get to everything else, tell me about Ed. Your background. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school? How did you get into this, line of work? What inspired you?
Yeah. Well, as you mentioned at the beginning, it's a family business, so it was something that was on the horizon since I was young. I grew up in New York, actually, in Westchester and White Plains, and went to my undergraduate degrees from Manhattan College, so right in the Bronx and Riverdale. So know the city very well, and I studied finance in my undergraduate degree, and had done internships in finance, and had also spent time as a laborer in the construction world, working for Gilbane. So my career started, technically in summers in 1978, believe it or not, when I was in school. And as I came to graduation, I had this fork in the road, which was, do I go into construction or do I go towards, finance? And there was something about the concreteness, the tangibility of building buildings that drew me. And so I moved to Boston and worked on a 42-story high-rise that we were working on there as a management trainee. So I did engineering, and I was out in the field as a superintendent, and really learned from the spent 2 years doing that from the grassroots up. And then I went in and I worked in the office in Gilbane building. So I was on the building side, looking at and understanding how we did estimating and scheduling and how the sales process worked. Then I went back out into the field and I worked on a project, which was the corporate headquarters for Ocean Spray Cranberry. And that experience was a design build. So it was my exposure to the fact that, building wasn't just building, that you could look at a little bit more. And that reopened and kindled my interest in finance again, because of course now I'm 4 years into my career, 5 years in, I realized that real estate and there's finance associated with this. And so over the next couple of years, I studied, I got an MBA, and ended up moving from the construction side to the real estate side of Gilbane, and worked at first on the delivery of assets that we had. So using the expertise or the knowledge I had learned when I was on the building side, but overlaying that with my other interests, which was finance, and then that matured and pulled that together. And I had great teams that I work with, which allowed me to advance in the organization. And then I was the CEO of the real estate company, where we grew that platform to have 4 major verticals. We do affordable housing, as I mentioned. We do market rate housing. We do public-private partnerships, which is a really cool topic that I hope we have the opportunity to spend a minute talking about. And those businesses have grown to a point where they're pretty substantial. And then I've moved on and now have the opportunity to run our holding company. And in the holding company, the major operating entities are our building operation and our development operation, but we have a number of other companies that are within those and within Gilbane where what we're doing is we're looking to find areas that we can help our clients in the built environment. And we have a desire to pick the areas that we can go very deep, Eric, and be very, very good partners and not be just okay at something. If we decide to do it, we're going to be the best and go as deep as we can. And that, has provided great long-term partnerships for us.
I loved a lot of what you want to say. A couple of things I want to unpack. Manhattan College, amazing
Yeah.
school. My dad's dream would have been that I went to Manhattan College. My sister did, but he's got a lot of lifelong friends, and we have a lot of great people in the industry from Manhattan College. So great shout out there. And I didn't know that about you, so I was actually surprised to hear that. That's great. Another thing was, it's got to be very powerful when you do visit a job site or meet a client to be able to say, hey, I started this almost 50 years ago as a laborer. It's not like I'm just some guy in a suit walking around showing up. I know what it takes to really put these projects together. So I'm just glad you touched on that and your progression in your career to get to where you were. So my dad was, and I guess I've mentioned him a lot now, but he's a big believer in that too. Like in our first, he was like, hey, whatever you do, and my dad has an engineering company, he's like, you got to start in the field because that is where real work happens and you need to understand how that happens. So very, very interesting there. I want to ask you a question about that. Starting in the field to where you are now, right? Leading an entire enterprise. And you mentioned a number of, different functions of the overall Gilbane, corporations. How has your leadership view changed, from those early days, right, where you were maybe a management trainee or a laborer to now as a chief executive? What do you think is the greatest difference, and what have you learned, kind of along the way?
Well, first, Eric, I would say your father is a wise man because I would
I'll tell
I
him
would
that.
I would agree with that. That I think there's real benefits in understanding the roots of the businesses that you're in, whatever you're in, because, as you progress through the organization, we are as good as we are in the field in construction and real estate and development. How are we doing, whether it's at leasing a property, what's the customer experience? How are we building something for someone? And so as you progress through the organization, understanding that at its root really gives you some eyes into how to ensure that you have the organization moving in a correct direction. I think as you move, when you think of leadership, your question, I think when you're a management trainee, and when I was growing up, there was definitely a hierarchical approach to how what you learned. You were very focused on learning specific skills. And if you learn those skills, it allowed you to move towards middle management because you understood those skills. And then you were learning how you could manage, not just do the skills themselves. And then when you move to the next level where you're more, in the C-suite of some type, now you're looking at, in a broad way, how do I have these influences be very clear on what the direction of the organization is? What are our core values? How do we have accountability across the organization? And super fun at each level. And I think I was blessed in that I was able to connect these two passions. If you go all the way back to the beginning, I kind of had this fork and
Yep.
I pulled them both together, and I operate in a place that I enjoy, I'm passionate about. And I think that permeates to our team, and we draw people that are like that. That's how the Gilbane team is. And in a world where the built environment's changing so much, right? And projects are becoming so much more complicated. Expectations of clients are higher. Clients are looking for partners that they can trust. They're looking for somebody who has broader expertise so they can understand and listen to what the client's challenges are, not just, say, okay, I can get you concrete on a certain day. It's more what's the client really trying to do? And so I think humbly, my exposure to all of this has allowed me to understand that and help pull it together. And the last thing I'd say is that when you think about it is you have to realize that as you move through, you actually move away from being the expert anymore. You are relying on people. And I think good leaders realize that they pull teams together of people who are better than they can be at the particular areas. And that's what allows a team to go from good to great.
Oh, it's one of my favorite books. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but
Oh,
Jim
yeah.
Collins
I've
is
read it many
absolutely
times.
fantastic. Now I'm like in a totally different headspace because I'm like, oh, I got to read some more Jim Collins stuff soon because it's been a
Yeah. He's
while.
great.
But great book. And but from what I heard there, which I really appreciated because I don't know that we've ever talked about this, it sounds like leadership qualities at every stage were a little bit different, and maybe at this stage, it's about picking the right people to be on your team that may have deeper and even better knowledge than you do on certain, on their key, like SMEs. Whereas earlier in the career, it's about becoming that expert, right? You want to be that
Yeah.
expert and be able to help catalyst whatever, whoever your manager is at the time. And,
Super accurate.
and so just like, yeah, feedback for the audience that leadership throughout your career doesn't necessarily have to be one thing that you're doing. It's about growing and understanding as you go. And I think that can be hard. That's actually like internally for me, that's going to be something I'm going to look back at this episode and really think deeply about. So I really appreciate you sharing that. I love that.
One other thing I'll share, Eric, that just in my early career as I went through, because I reflect back on this, and you don't know you're learning it when you're learning it, but
Yeah.
there was a point when I turned around and I had worked for 5 different leaders in different capacities, and I recognized that they all had very different styles as to how they led. And that allowed me to reflect on who am I and how am I going to be a leader, because we're not all the same and we don't motivate people the same and we don't. So for me, that was a critical thing. It wasn't just, keep go. It's slow down, think for a minute. If you're responsible for something, how are you best to communicate that? And how do you, why and where should you be a good listener so you're not just telling people how to do things? So there's a lot there.
Yeah, well, I think that, what it just reminded me of also is Stephen Covey, and I don't know if you've put 7 Habits and, seek to understand, not to be understood. And that's like a very powerful lesson around listening and understanding. And again, it's amazing because leadership spans a lot of different things. People kind of like try to pigeonhole it into just about being like a leader kind of at work. But that like leadership criteria is also how you need to be with your clients, and it's also like, I'm a strong believer in if we create better leaders, our communities get better for it. And when I was at this event on Monday, he shared with us something around the infinite loop of giving, which is kind of that idea that like the more you give, the more you get. But not only that, but those people also give more because they are recipients of your positivity, right? In a way. So I'm a big believer in that, right? The better leaders we create or the more leadership we have, they're better community members. They're better family members at home. They're beyond just work, what they're doing at work. They're hopefully better. Or, earlier in your previous answer, you also touched on, how you're doing some public-private partnerships, and maybe we could spend a couple of minutes talking about that because I do think it's interesting, and especially, it kind of like manages your 2 passions, right? Which were finance and construction. It sounds like, right? Like building. So tell us about that. Like, why are they so important right now, and how are you guys kind of becoming involved with them?
Well, I think if we step back and we think of the industry that we're in, there are a lot of moving pieces and different partnerships that happen from the beginning of a project to the operations of a project. And our hypothesis, it has been, and our conviction has just grown, that there's going to be continued integration of all of that. When we overlay technology and what's happening and the pace of change, then we see that happening. And we have been uniquely positioned in that we have a reasonably large construction operation and real estate development operation. And they bring we're in the same industry, but they bring different skill sets to the table. And there are public and there are private institutional clients who really can benefit by partnering with someone who can bring the appropriate skills to the dance for that particular need that they have. So it's listening to the client, understanding what they want, and Gilbane engaging in the best way that fits their goals. And we can pull from building, we can pull from development, we can pull from other pieces. And so what that means is we have a lot of institutional clients where we'll come in very early on and work with them on their overall planning associated with their facility. So not just master planning a campus, let's say I was at a university yesterday, and it's not just master planning the campus, but it's thinking through the integration of uses that might happen in an urban environment. It's overlaying how the financing might happen to that. There's tax exempt financing, there's taxable financing, there's workforce housing, there's affordable, there's all these components. And in a non-biased way, looking at and pulling together a few strategies that they can choose from. And then we have the ability to provide the delivery on a guaranteed basis. So they can go through the planning, understanding that the delivery is not something in the future that we have to really figure out how it comes together, because we're able to look at all of that as you go through that. And so it's a growing piece of our business. We've delivered K through 12 schools. We've delivered hospital facilities. We deliver student housing, on-campus student housing, where we partner with colleges and universities. So there are a lot of applicability, and I think that trusted partner, single source of accountability for a scope that a client needs will continue to grow and is an area that Gilbane, sets itself apart.
That's very fascinating. And you mentioned a couple of sectors I didn't realize like P3s were happening, and maybe part of that is just my exposure to it's been mostly infrastructure. But so when you're talking about maybe some, like I heard you talk about schools, right? Like student housing. Is it partnering with the universities, or who do you consider the public owner in that partnership there?
So a great question. We do totally private student housing development where we own a site that is across the street and we lease directly to the students. And in that way, we are communicating with the institution, but there's no partnership involved in it. And then we do partnerships where the institution is a active partner with us, and we will fill the role that they may need filled. And so I'll give you an example of that. Eastern Michigan University, is in an environment where there is a consolidation of population there and people are migrating out, and it's geared towards a larger population than they see they will have in the future. And so what we work with them on was actually a downscaling model, but ensuring that they maintained the texture and the environment that they wanted for their students. So they don't have this massive campus that, people are all over the place. So how do you,
Yeah.
and that involved a complete financial plan. It involved the renovation of some buildings. It involved the construction of new buildings. It involved the demolition of other buildings. It involves part of a long-term management of the assets for them. And so by partnering in the very beginning and working through that and then coming, and what for the, in this case, the university, what they got was they had a trusted partner, open understanding of what was to happen. And then when they said go, over the next 3 years, they had a roadmap, they had costs, they had schedule, they knew what was going to be, they had financing, they knew how it was going to be delivered. So that's one example. We've done K through 12 schools. Prince George's County in Maryland delivered close to $500 million worth of schools in 3 years. So very uniquely positioned that we could do, a number of projects, 5, 6, 7 projects in different P3s concurrently because of the scale of our business on the construction side. But also we were able to have the sophistication to help put the financing together. And that also has a management component that goes on for a number of years. So and then there are a lot of other examples of it, but those are a
No,
couple.
those are great examples. And what I love is, what I heard come through and through again, and this might be me, and I don't know if the industry, but typically when I think of public-private partnerships, it's about bringing the financing as much as it's about the construction and development. And I loved your answer was really the focus on the partnership, right? Like we can help solve whatever problems you have. It doesn't just have to be finance or construction. You guys are doing planning, you're doing advisory services. It sounds like consulting services, right? Finance, but not finance like bringing finance to the table, but also like the tax abatement strategies, right? You were talking about kind of helping and advising clients. So
Yeah.
I love that answer because it's given me new perspective on like what a public-private partnership can really look like and be. You also touched on very quickly there. You said the pace of technology, and I would love to hear your thoughts on that right now. AI, and between now and when this episode goes live, AI will have completely changed. But and I don't want to pigeonhole you into the AI conversation. It just seems to be where this goes. But talk to me about technology. Like, how do you approach technology? Maybe even as a leader, how do you approach it, right, and use it? But also, how are you looking at it at the enterprise level, right, as a company or as an organization, really more than a company, because obviously it's multiple companies. But as an organization, how are you trying to look at technology and implementing it and, faster, safer, cheaper, higher quality, right? Like getting all that done.
All of the above, Eric. Now we're super excited about technology. We embrace it. We have embraced it. We see it as an enabler to us delivering to our clients on what their needs are. And we, when you think about scheduling in our industry, people do what's called a forward pass and a backward pass, right? They look at how it might go if you start at the beginning, and then they look if you start at when you need it done and you come backwards. And I think of our technology view as very similar. It's a wave of, we look at it from across the organization, so from the top level, and then we look at it at the grassroots level, and we're constantly, doing waves through the organization to see how best we can utilize it and where we should be. I think of us as an immediate, I don't know if this is a technology term, but like an immediate follower. We're not trying to be on the cutting edge and to understand, because the change is just happening so fast. But I do think we need to be right behind it. Philosophically, at the corporate level, I also believe that we are in an environment where people are overestimating the immediate impact, what's going to happen tomorrow or a month from now, but underestimating the long-term impacts. And so we're focused on where will it have real impact in the long term. It doesn't mean we're not doing things today, but we're approaching them in kind of a modular way so that knowing change will happen. We're not betting on something that we can predict. We're making changes that can happen today. We have our entire database is being centralized, so we can do all the cool things that you can do with data lakes and things like that. And we've rolled out AI across the organization. It's a focus of myself and our leadership team to use AI, to talk about AI and how it can benefit the organization, and how it can benefit us as individuals. We're building agents at various levels, so we're fully using it across the board, and I think we openly understand that it will enhance and make some of our jobs much easier, which will free up time for people to do other things. And we're also in a position where we are growing. And I see this as an opportunity for our team to grow with us as we go and to utilize technology to take away some of those mundane things that are in all of our lives every day. So super excited about that. And the last thing I'd say about it is the way that we're implementing specifically AI, besides teaching across the board, is we're also finding the high payback areas within the organization, looking at what the returns can be. And we have a small SWAT team basically that comes in and helps us accelerate that, get it up and running, and then move to the next, almost like a consulting group might come in and help you do something and move through the organization. So fun topic.
Yeah, I loved a lot of what you said. And I I agree with that, like, and I hope this word is okay, but like pragmatic approach, right? We need to be very close to the front, but and I feel this way too. Like, but 90% of those companies that are leading, that are at the front, are going to fail. It's just the nature of that world, right? The technology world. That's just
Right.
how they operate. There's a book I really like. Um, 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 Move fast and break things, and it comes off the adage of, I think, when Facebook was first founded, they talked about that, right? Like, and that's a technology concept, but it doesn't maybe apply as strongly to what we do. But it's important to be right behind it. So we're very similarly like implementing agents and trying to get rid of the mundane tasks. And I was at an event for a very large charter school the other day, and the CEO spoke, and she was amazing. But she talked about how they're trying to implement AI into their schools. And she was like, the greatest challenge I have is not is that people assume that means I'm trying to get rid of teachers, and I'm not, because teachers are the most important thing we have. What I'm trying to do is give them an extra 3 hours that they can spend with the kids, that they can encourage them and teach them and help build them up. And I feel the same way for our team, right? While we're not touching, we're not with students in the same way, that the point isn't to get rid of people. I think human ingenuity is so critical to what we do, but it's getting rid of the mundane tasks, right? If you're spending 10 hours a week updating a spreadsheet, is that your value? And it's probably not, right? Your value is the ideas you come up with, or the way you contribute to your team, or the positive energy you have with your colleagues. And can we get some of that stuff out? So I loved your approach and answer.
Yeah. I think that I'd add one thing for you, which applies to all of us. And so you got to look in the mirror first. But it is that we as individuals and employees have to adapt. We have to be willing to learn and change, because it's coming and it's not. So that's an important thing for all of our teams, all to realize that, okay, it's coming. It can be an enhancement, not be afraid of it, but learn it and you figure out how to use it, and don't be afraid of it, because that's the power. Take the power of it and advance yourself, because it should be a great tool for each individual and for teams and for companies.
Are you comfortable sharing your, like, personally, like, what tool do you use and how do you use it a little bit?
So I used ChatGPT some, and I use Copilot a reasonable amount, because it's tied into our whole network, and we have Copilot 365. And I use it for research. I use it for helping draft ideas that I have. We use it to help within my email system. And I'm building an agent right now, which is not fully out there, that will, help me in thinking through strategy and delivering the message that's consistent with what we're talking about today. So it's on the radar, and as we go into this the summer months, we have a whole program set up for our executive leadership team, which will be focused on getting and making sure that, so we're not just saying we're doing things or asking people to do things, but they can see it in our behavior. And I'm excited about it. But it's a learning. You have to commit yourself, particularly when you have a few years on you, Eric. So I need to really convince myself to go at it. But I'm excited about it.
It's exciting, but it's brand new for all of us. There, you had mentioned something, and it reminded me of a quote I really like. It's a Bill Gates quote, and it's that very often we'll overestimate what we can accomplish in 1 year, but underestimate what we will accomplish in 10 years. And I think this is going to be, this will prove that quote out. I think we're overestimating what'll be done in a year, but I think the world 10 years from now looks completely different,
Yeah,
and
it is. And I think it's to the point you made earlier. I would just we want to be an immediate follower in technology, because that's not our business.
right.
It doesn't mean, within our business, I think that challenging yourself and exposing yourself to failure is really important. It's going to happen, and you need to do that. It's just technology is not our business. So we don't want to get out over our skis there. We want to be operating and using that as a partner in moving us forward.
Yeah, I loved what you said earlier. You just, you have to go very deep on the places you have expertise.
Yeah.
And you obviously have expertise in a number of places, right? And that expertise, by virtue of having that expertise, you are also going to be drawing on the best technology. It's going to be coming into place. It just may not, it may not be produced by you. The same way, like, we didn't create SharePoint, but it doesn't mean we're not the best users of it within our expertise. You probably are.
Yeah.
So, just touching on the technology front a little bit more, because I think this is such an interesting part of it. What about like construction technologies? Have you guys seen anything really cool that's more physical in nature? Like, we just talked a lot about, like, AI and we'll call it software, but any hardware you've seen that's really cool or exciting?
Well, of course, there are lots of things that are out there, and we're using a variety of them. I mean, drones are an integral part of the construction business now that, has changed over the last 4 or 5 years. There are robots that are used, and we use on some of our projects that are really cool, that can take progress photos for you. They can watch for safety items that you have, and they're capable of moving about the building completely independent and going to the exact same spot and taking, a variety of reasons. They can go up and down stairs for you. And so, my personal observation touring a site just a little while back was it was being used like in the off hours. So in the evening you could go, and when there weren't a lot of activities, and just get a real picture of what was happening, and people could come in. That helps with the communication. We also have, there are lots of AI-enabled packages that we're using that are allowing us to integrate with the design much earlier, that are allowing us to process RFIs and changes. And so we have packages that will allow us to integrate all of the documents on a project and be out in the field. And while we're out in the field, look something up and find the latest, comment that the architect has made on it. So one of our partners is Trunk Tools, and
Yes.
they're great partner of ours, and just helping us accelerate the learning, tying to our internal systems and all. So there's lots of cool places. We've created an agent internally on the real estate side that when we get something like loan documents that come in, it can instantaneously scan them for paragraphs and topics that we want to make sure that we address properly, or partnership agreements where, it was hours of somebody going through that and summarizing it before. So those are the little pockets and we're at that, and that's where our teams are doing a great job. And we're looking at each one of those, keeping our eye on the fact that we believe the industry is going to consolidate. So how do these small steps in the end tie together so we can remain very focused on what our clients need and how we bring the built environment to them in a very deep way in the areas that we have expertise.
I love it. Yeah, I think technology is such an interesting topic. So something I've been curious about the last few days, because when I went to that thing on a couple of days ago, I shared earlier with Dave Metzer, he lives by this quote, and it's you're either humble or about to be humbled. And it was interesting because he goes into how being proud to him is not the opposite of humble, but it's the openness to learning and willing to be, wrong, like, at sometimes. And so my question to you is, like, in your career where you've kind of been in every, like, position, what was, like, the most humbling lesson you might have learned, at during that time, Saman?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I think I agree. I like the quote, because I think we are humble. I would say that we are humble, and then we get humbled because we lose our humility. We're humans, and it happens, and we really have to try and hold ourselves to that as we go forward. I think one of the humbling things as you grow is recognizing the importance of listening and surrounding yourself with experts who know more than you do about the subsets of the business. And I think, when you think about that curve of growth I was describing, if you're first learning and then you're becoming an expert, and that expertise requires you to be very committed and firm, and but it's a humbling moment when you realize that, I'm not the world's expert on this, but it is the leaders that recognize that and accept it, because that acceptance allows us to go to the next level and realize that we have to keep working on humility and understanding that there are people who are, and if we can do that, then we're going to be good listeners there, which empowers those that work with us. And if we have a clear vision and we're pointed in one direction, it can help us be real successful. And again, I think those are some of the underlying characteristics, going back to Collins, of how you take a good company and be a great company. And I think when you have an organization like Gilbane that's 170 years old, has the foundation of the family, has core values that have been rooted in it, and I can give you, examples of those core values over the last 150 years and all, then it's that type of humility, humble servant leadership that allows you to be great, because you're kind of good, but you got to be great in order to serve your clients properly.
I love the idea, and I love the practicality of, like, we want to be humble. There will be times that we lose our humility, right? Because we are successful in something, or we achieve a goal, or we create some level of success, and then you will hopefully bring back the humility and be humbled once again. So in your career, from moving from Gilbane Development to ultimately leading Gilbane Inc., what do you think were some of the, like, defining moves that prepared you for that next step?
Well, Eric, it's interesting because I've been asked that and thought about it. And, one foundational thing is that I never, while I'm a family member, a fifth generation family member, my immediate family was not the core founders of the business. I'm related and I'm part of the family, but I never entered with this as an aspiration. And I think that what foundationally allowed me to be considered for the position and gives me confidence, humble confidence, as I do it, is the breadth of experience that I had, right? All of a sudden, I turned around and we turned around, and I had really been exposed to a lot of what Gilbane does, how they do it, where we do it. I'd worked with a variety of different clients, providing different types of services. And I think having a vision for that for the overall industry, for where we've been able to have real impacts with clients, and recognizing that one of the major tools that we have is trust. That we are a very, very trusted partner, and that allows us to think about where we might be able to do more with our clients, because it's not we have them listening to us saying we'd consider this. And I think my experience touching on different pieces of it really helped. I think also the great leaders that came before me in the organization, and when I was rising, I got to see people like Bob Gilbane and Tom Gilbane and Paul Choquette and others, and I got to watch them and partner with them when we had bad economic times. Like, think about the ups and downs in the financial markets, COVID. So seeing people who the core values that we're talking about as a company resonate with them as individuals gives you the power to allow that to resonate with you as an individual. So when you get to the seat, which can be lonely at times, you have those core values that you can reflect back on and be like, okay, these are foundational. This is how we're going to make decisions, and this is how we're going to move forward. And I trust that that's the right way to go.
I know we could probably do a whole episode on this, but I will ask you if you have a short answer to it. But what's the secret to getting to the fifth generation? Like, I hope that my kids will, they're very young right now, so very young that they don't even understand that I have a business, but what's the secret to getting to the fifth generation and keeping the family, friendly? Because that's also part of it, right? Like I've seen families get torn apart, right? Companies get very large and they get multi-generational in, and there's challenges there. So do you have a
Yeah.
quick answer to that? I know it's a very broad question.
Yeah. There's lots you can say about it. I think I'll go back to the core values and having a tight family view on what is correct and what's not, and that allows the company to have that foundation. And then I would go to governance, and I would say that what happens is governance evolves. First, it's governance of the family and the business together, and there's senior key family members that are able to do that. And then um, at the right time, what happened in Gilbane is, and I think is what helps companies succeed, is there was a recognition of a need to bring some outsiders in too, that you can become too, it's just us. So bringing an outside board of advisors in happened many years ago, which turned into an outside board of directors. And now we have a board of directors that has more members that are outside the family than inside the family. So we are, I like to say, Sarbanes-Oxley light. And so that gives a feeling of confidence that there's good governance in place across the organization. Our partners, our clients, and our stockholders all can look and understand that we are operating in the market. Yet we have this great differentiator that we are United States-based, family-owned, with real deep roots, and family members that are available to, work and partner with our clients.
I love it. Great response, sir. Thank you for sharing that. All right, we're going to go into our closeout segment. Today, it's a lighter segment we call Favorites, and it's a chance for our audience to get to know you a little bit better. So I'm going to throw out a couple of prompts. Just, first thing that comes to mind. Don't overthink it. No need to explain it. But if you want to, you can. But I'll just jump right in. So what's your favorite way to reset after a hard week of work?
Exercise
Yeah, very
is
cool.
a key, and it's ongoing. It's not just a complete reset.
Are you a runner? Are you a lifter? What's your swimmer? What do you like?
My running has slowed down, but and during COVID I got into the Peloton. So I
Oh,
do
cool.
some Peloton, I run a little bit, I lift a little bit. That keeps me sane during the week. And then as the weekend hits, spending some quality time with my wife would be the high priority to give me some separation.
Great answer. What about, and someone in your position, right? Really, like, I would consider that the pinnacle of our industry, right? I mean, one of the largest companies in the industry and the CEO of that parent company. Is there a favorite founder you admire? Like, is there someone either contemporaneously or in the past that you really admire as a leader?
Um, I think that there are a lot of people that have had a broad influence on me. A number of them, in our family and part of our business, and I could go through all those. But I do think that when I look, and very, very different, that Steve Jobs and his ability to see into the future. If you really listen to what he had to say, he could see where his industry was going way before others. He was a deep thinker, and he had great failure in his life that led to success. So it's that acceptance and being knocked down. It's not about how you go down, it's about how you get back up.
He's an incredible, and obviously there's positives and negatives to him as
Yeah.
an individual, and we all know. But as far as like a founder and a visionary, and he's got an incredible story. I'll give you one last one, and it is do you have a favorite like leadership quote or like a mantra you subscribe to?
The mantra I subscribe to is that we are a sum of all of the small things that we do, and that the little things matter. So no matter where I am, here in the organization, it's about what I do every day, the small things. And it's about, when you go through Gilbane as an organization, it's what we're doing every day across our 3,500 employees.
I love that as a mantra. Thank you, Ed. It's all the time we have for today. Do you have any closing words before we sign off here?
Just thank you. It's been a great discussion, and look forward to listening to your podcasts as we go forward in general.
Thank you so much. And I will say you've been an amazing guest, and I'm sure you're gonna do even greater things with Gilbane. I'm really excited to see that trajectory. For our audience, we'll include links to any of the resources we mentioned in the show notes. Thanks again for listening, and keep an eye out for our next episode.
This episode is brought to you by Infinite Consulting Corp., your go-to firm for MBE certified project and construction management consulting. Discover how Infinite can help you build a better future at infiniteconsultingcorp.com.